and gentlemen, welcome back to In the Zone. Pete Coles, Rich Sutter, dynamic duo of the hoop world. Folks, it's October, getting ready for hoops. Practices have started, preseason exhibition games will be around the corner, and it's really, really ramping up on both sides with the NBA and the NCAA. In the Zone, we're here to keep you informed. We're here to keep you ready for the season. We'll keep you going as the season progresses, and as the season ends, we're going to go there for the March Madness like everybody else. But before we jump off today, we're in October. Pete's nuptials are this month. So, Pete, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. I've been waiting for this for a while.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Had the pleasure to have dinner with Pete and his future wife, Christy, and it was just a great evening. And looking forward to it, Pete. Really happy for you. All right, so we always start off in Pete's Corner. That's where we begin. Pete formulates, postulates, and hoists three questions my way on the blind. And Pete's been doing a good job lately because he's been making me think a lot. That's one thing for sure. Go ahead, Pete. Fire your first ball.
All right, so the NBA allegedly has a salary cap, but we all know that's bogus. Should they enforce a hard salary cap? No penalties, no nothing. You either meet the salary cap or you don't.
Okay, great question. I take it a completely different way because I'm a bit of an NBA anarchist right now because they're just so crazy and out of control. I say take the cap out completely. For it's so complicated that the average person has no idea how to navigate the NBA salary cap. Now, the reason I say take it out is because it's become very complex and it's onerous, especially on teams that are trying to get better. Let's take a prime example of the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay? They had Dame Lillard. He blew out his Achilles. Now, I understand that they owe him a certain amount of money, but once that obligation is met, they shouldn't have to carry X amount of that salary on their cap for God knows how long at like $23 million per. It's where some of these times where these really big salaries can come back to haunt the team because now it's not just like a salary, it's like an indenture. You know, you're there for a long time now, still having to carry that on your books. So I would say let's do away with the cap and make it a completely free market arena and let the governance of each one of those teams decide which way they want to go. I'll give you another example of the Boston Celtics. They were spending like drunken sailors.
Yeah.
They got the championship they needed under those circumstances, but then looked at their model and said, this is only built in championship seasons. It only is successful in championship seasons. They wound up losing. You had last year not losing, but didn't win the championship last year. They didn't repeat. And then you had ownership change. And the new owners came in and said, I think we're going to have to do a better job fiscally with this team so that we're not hemorrhaging money. We don't have a luxury tax that exceeds our payroll. And that's also where, you know, the NBA, again, does anybody even know what the luxury tax is? There's a few people on the inside that know about it, and lawyers, I'm sure. But the average person it's not contextual to the average person. And so if it's not, like Albert Einstein said, if you can't explain it like to somebody in fifth grade, then you've lost your way a little bit, you know. And sometimes, to be honest, Pete, I think they do that intentionally. You know, so that nobody really knows what's under the hood of this engine. You know, nobody really has any idea how drastically bad this is, you know. But that's a great question. I think it could go one, you can go your way, and it's got to be a hard cap, and it's got to be, you know, you can't re-sign your own free agent for whatever dollar amount you want, and then have that be a bypass of the cap. I think that's, you know, it's one of those trap doors that they built in there and said it was the NBA also. I'm trying to say to these
Shake your head
people,
going, what?
Well, it's also the NBA with their thumb on the scale, Pete. because they wanted to keep certain players in certain. They didn't want players moving around as much as they can move around now because they think that's detrimental for the league. If you look at LeBron James, and then compare him to Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan played for the Chicago Bulls for his entire career until the very, very end of it after the baseball thing, and then the Washington Wizards, for a little bit. But he didn't actively seek out different teams where the championship atmosphere was better, and that's something that's happening on the often occasion right now. It's not a rare occasion; it's the often occasion.
Yep.
And so I think the NBA was trying to fight a little bit of that when they did that. But, to re-sign your own free agent for whatever dollar amount you want and then say you have a salary cap, you don't. You don't. You have a fake salary cap. So many other things with the NBA.
That's why people are so confused. It's gotten stupid. Like you see the Celtics spending a ton of money and then they get whacked with this huge luxury tax. Well, either you have a salary cap or you don't. Like it's a salary cap suggestion right now. That's the way it is. It's a suggestion. But you can spend over that, no problem, but there's going to be a tax. Well, that's stupid too.
They just also have, with the situation that they're in, why have it at all?
Yeah.
Let the management of each one of those teams legislate it. Hey, we paid too much money. Our payroll is too high. We lost money. So we need to change that. And I think that would be the best thing for the league personally, because it would balance some of this out.
Yep.
It would make it a little more balanced. But great question, Pete. You're off to a good start.
All right. If LeBron James is not on a winning team this year, does he retire?
Well, he's in his 40s.
That's what I'm saying.
He's the oldest player in the NBA right now, I believe. So the clock's on.
Like, would you? If I think he wanted to see his son come into the league, which he accomplished. The Lakers aren't that good of a team. If he doesn't have a winning season, does he say, "Yeah, it's time for me to retire"? Because now you're looking at tarnishing your legacy.
He's also at the tarnishing of the legacy piece is somewhat might be irrelevant to him because he's also amassing more and more and more points, rebounds, assists. He's the leading scorer of all time. So now he gets to put some distance between that. What's alarming to me is that he's been able to remain as healthy as he has been over this really, really long period of time and never, ever really get hurt.
Is that because he doesn't play defense?
It has a lot to do with it. It certainly does. It has a lot to do with it. But it's also, he is a bit of a freak of nature, a little bit physically, and I think that's helped out. But there's also been some stuff that's been bandied about him that was, there's other ways of staying strong and doing that stuff. But I don't have any idea about that. But another good one, I think, so the piece of it, let me come back on this a little bit with you, is if the minute LeBron James steps out of the NBA, is that bye-bye Bronny?
I don't think so, because it seems like when you're in the league as a legacy player, you're in the league. Like, we've seen that with Isaiah Thomas's kid playing in the league for a while without his dad being there. I think he wanted to get him in the door. I don't think Bronny was good enough to get in on his own, or at least when he did, he got him in the door. And I honestly foresee his father not leaving basketball. He's going into a front office, so he'll probably keep him on staff, probably with the Lakers.
Maybe some ownership.
Yep,
he's got some money. Yeah,
I don't see Bronny going anywhere.
But to answer your question, I mean, it has to be. You could say, what is it, 1 season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons? I mean, is it really more than that?
I don't think so.
I mean, I don't know.
That's why I asked the question, is this, if he doesn't have a good season this year, does he say, nah, I'm good?
If it gets also to the point where one of the reasons they're not having a good season is because of him, then you might see some external pressures because they do have new management there. There may be some external pressures on him to either find a new team if he wants to keep going, or to end his career gracefully, and go out in the NBA with a farewell and a great send off. But I really don't think his play, to be honest, I don't think his play has diminished enough where you would say, yeah, it's time for him to hang it up. I mean, he had pretty good numbers last year, and the Lakers made the playoffs. Although they got bounced right away, they did make the playoffs. So I don't see the diminishment in his play that you would want to see if you said, hey, man, it's time to hang it up.
Yeah, but Tom Brady walked away nearly at the peak of his career before he became a shell of himself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a personal decision, and I think that's one of the reasons you've seen him stick around as long as he has, because they do miss it once they give it up. I mean, it's a tremendous, tremendous lifestyle change.
Yeah.
Tom Brady's in a booth now instead of over the top of a center. That's huge. Is LeBron ready for that? Because all of those doors are open to him.
He's doing a lot of commercials, so I think he is getting ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, and he's every single door, basketball-wise, whether he wanted to show up in ESPN and do some work with Charles and Kenny and those guys, they would welcome him with open arms. If he wanted to get into some ownership piece, you have A-Rod now owning a piece of the Timberwolves. So are you going to see more and more of that? Athletes reinvesting their money into the leagues
Well, Tom Brady owns a piece of the Raiders now.
Yeah. These guys have a lot of money. They got a lot of money. And these franchises are so valuable, the amount of money that they're making. I mean, you might say, hey, some of it's got to cap out soon. But, when you see what the Celtics sold for, and now we're talking billions, say the Golden State Warriors have an valuation of $9 billion, and they were the number one team in the NBA. And guess what? The Lakers sold for $10 billion.
Right.
So it's a very, very volatile market right now, but seems to be going up and up and up. So there's big things waiting for him, but I think it's so personal. I really do. And he's going to have to come to a reconciliation with himself about what's the time, when is it ready, But the other piece of it I'll go back on is I think the day that he leaves the Lakers is the day Bronny James is headed to the G League or to Europe. I don't think they keep him.
Really?
No, I really don't. I think this new ownership team would have never allowed this to happen, most likely. And then the other group got pushed around by him and have been getting pushed around by him a good bit, but I don't really know. I don't really know what's the exact day, but if they don't produce, sometimes it's like the old basketball coach or the old football coach too, Oh, he's been a great coach and got championships and he's won, and then the guy sticks around a little too long. And the external pressures are the ones that generally come where they say, it's time to go. One way or the other, it's time to go. So will it be internal with him saying, I want control of this, I want to handle it, I want to do it first class like I've pretty much done my whole career? He's been a first-class athlete. No matter what you say, he's been void of pretty much any stuff that's hit the newspapers in a negative way. He's been able to stay out of that. So I think that's a huge accomplishment these days as well, too. So his legacy is well cemented. Now you want to say, when do you exit that stage left? That's the tough question. It's a really tough question. I bet he thinks about it every single day. And during the season, I bet he changes his mind every day. After 2 losses, he sits on that stool and says, I'm too old for this. I got to get out of here. I can't put up with this crap anymore. After a winning streak and they get into the playoffs and have a decent season, I think he may be a little rejuvenated by that. So I think he probably is a seesaw with him, up and down a little bit. I think it's really, really it's a major, major life decision, especially for a guy who's done everything that he's done. So you're just sitting there and say, what would be on the table? What's more for him?
What's the successor?
He's got the championship rings. He's the leading scorer of all time, passing Kareem. I mean, what's left to do? So I think you could get into the point that you were alluding to, where you jump into the point of diminishing return. You're just not getting enough positive out of it. And I think that will be the determining factor for him, is when it becomes that. But now he's got his son with him. He's enjoying things. I think he's in a little bit of a protector role with the son, a little bit more than people might think. So sticking around, might give Bronny that extra couple of years to work himself into a pretty good pro. Young man has talent, comes from great pedigree. Can he find a role in the NBA? Sure. Might take a little more time, and this might be what gets him the time.
Yeah.
But another great question, Pete. Let's hit number 3, and we're rocking and rolling.
All right. If the college basketball genie were to appear to you right now and say you can change college basketball in one way, what would you bring back or take away?
I would take away the NIL. And I would put every single athlete that plays on your roster anywhere, not just football and basketball, every single athlete they would get a stipend. They would get a share of that money. But at the same moment, I don't believe that they're entitled to the share that they're getting right now, nor do I believe that they can get that anywhere else. So I think right now you're looking at something that's been completely mishandled, and it's absolutely mismanagement 101. And I think that's, if I had one step to do it, I wanted it to be amateurism the whole time. Why did they ruin that? I think you could have kept calling it amateurism if you had a stipend, if you had something that paid expenses, That's what I would say, because I was always in favor of that. But I'm not in favor of this. This is crazy.
Yep.
This is unmarketable. Unmarkable. How do you watch it? How do you control it? How do you say what's legal anymore? You've basically lost your right to say anything about anything as far as legality goes, because every single step of the way, the NCAA has been getting blown up. Go back with me, though. Go back in retrospect, and now you see this is why the NCAA was fighting as hard as they were to make this not happen, to ensure that this never did happen. But when you go from FBI wiretaps to this, I say you've completely lost your minds. Yeah. You've completely lost your way. And you've completely destroyed something that was really, really valuable to a lot of people. You destroyed it. Once you started taking the amateurism out of it, you destroyed it. The NCAA, could they have fought harder and maybe better, to try and keep this thing at bay? Or are they liable and gullible because, culpable also because they could have solved this in the way that I'm talking about? A long time ago, they could have put the stipends in. They could have got, a share of what was going on there instead of just dumping all the money in the school. But I said this last week, and I'm not rubbing any genie bottle or anything, but what happens when the schools don't get enough of the money? That's what they were getting all along, was the money. Now you have these contracts that are enormous, but most of it, a lot of it's going out where it used to go in. And that was why the schools did it. That's why they looked the other way. That's why the grades came. That's why all the other stuff was put under the rug, because there was a ton of money in it. Yep. What happens when all of those things stay consistent and the money ebbs and evaporates? I want to see if these colleges are still willing, some of these academic institutions are still willing to stand by exactly what's going on right now based upon what it is. Because I've said this before, and I'll say it again until the cows come home, they can't get that money outside. You can't get that dough unless you're under Notre Dame's heading. Mm-hmm. You can't get that dough unless you're under Alabama's heading. You go out, like I said, and form another G League or form some other league, take this completely off of the campuses, and it will last 2 years with the TV people. It will last 3 years with the TV people. I can tell you that. And it will only induce people to watch the NBA, because that's what we know the NBA to be. It's a pay league. We know that. We also sit here and shake our head at the crazy amount of money that they're getting paid. But also, that's the pro league. That's the elite level. Brain surgeons get paid a lot of money. So elite people do get paid a lot of money. I think you're looking at this like going, oh, I don't know. When the Celtics put all of this payroll together and then you say we lost money, I will sit there and go like, what are you doing it for? You're supposed to make money. You buy these teams. Obviously, you sell them down the road for much more than they're worth. But
yeah, but when is it okay to live beyond your means?
Because the value of what you have is going to be worth so much when you dump it. It's kind of like people who take out home equity loans on their houses and stuff, because eventually once they sell the house, it's all going to come down to, it's all going to come down to the water line, so to speak, So they're just leveraging right now against the fact that we own one of these pieces of marketable and really, really valuable entities in these sports franchises, and they're going more and more and more. What I would say to some people that are looking, if they're investors, go look at the bottom level of these leagues and buy those teams, because they're ready, to be bought, and then you manage them better. It's only about management in the NBA, really, because otherwise it would be the Lakers and the Knicks every single year. They're the two big Chicago Bulls. It'd be a 1-2-3 punch. But now you got OKC there because they are managing the lights out of that program. They are managing the lights out of that organization, and they're out winning and they're outdoing everybody in the league strictly because of their management technique and their management expertise. I mean, they've excelled. They have really excelled. So that's what you see. But Pete, that might have been your best 3 questions ever. I'm going to start you off today, folks. We're going to go in the NBA just to kind of go through it and just go over a little bit of some of what we just talked about. But I have some questions. Pete gives me questions, but now I have some questions. And me and Pete will answer them together here. But the first question on the NBA chart of the season is, can the Thunder repeat? Are the Thunder in good enough position right now to pull off what the Denver Nuggets, the Boston Celtics, and a lot of other teams, that haven't done it in a while? The Warriors, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green in 17 and 18 was the last back-to-back. So it's been a while. What do you think, Pete? Can the Thunder bring down the Thunder?
I think they can, because they were drafting players that they know wouldn't make their team. You were talking about it earlier. And if they're doing that and they're drafting good players that just don't have enough oomph to make the team, they're the class of the field. Unless something goes really horribly wrong. Right now, coming into the season, I would say they're the class of the field.
SGA gets hurt or something like that is horribly wrong, is what you're alluding to?
Yeah.
Yeah, something really big, yeah.
It would have to be a major part, but they're a throwback to a team concept.
Yes, they are.
SGA is a good player, but they can get into the playoffs probably without him.
Oh, you're spot on. You're spot on. And I think I'm with you. They got a shot. They got a shot. Based upon just what you said at the very, very beginning of your comment when you said they're getting players, but they can't even sign them because they got everybody back. They got such a deep, deep well in that franchise. Okay, 25-26. Is the MVP race a binary? Is it Joker and SGA only? Or does somebody jump into that race, and who is it? Who could it be? I think...
Well, there's some big men out there that haven't got injured in their first season that haven't come to fruition. Wembayana.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, his promise is still out there.
Great name. Great name. That could be a crack. That could crack this 1-2 binary right now. That's actually been going on for several years now, because Joker, without the Embiid one, he's won a bunch in a row. SGA is poised to have another great year. So it could be a binary. I'll throw another name out there. Maybe Anthony Edwards of the Timberwolves is ready, But I think that's it. I don't think, I like yours, Wemby. I like Wemby. Is he back?
That's
Is
the
he
question.
healthy?
Yeah, is he healthy?
So little being bandied about that. Deep vein thrombosis is not, like a headache. He was out for the remainder of the year. What does that mean now? Is he on new medicines? Are they going to be deleterious to his performance? Those things. Those are the things you got to know. But I love it. I think he's got the great talent. He's mercurial for sure. Do things improve for the NBA, Pete?
No, not if they don't get their act together. They're spending like an influencer with a fresh credit card.
That's a good one.
And it's just like you have a spending problem in the NBA, right?
No
Until
question.
you can get that under control and giving out these insane contracts. I mean, I'm sorry. These contracts are insane. How do you make it work? Like, so many teams have one player that's good or a superstar. And that blows away the parity of the league. Because you have teams that in the NBA, sorry, I wouldn't pay money to go see.
No doubt. A bunch of them.
I wouldn't.
A bunch of them. There's a bunch down at the bottom of the league right now that if you go and you look online for their tickets, you can get them for $12. You can get them for nothing. I agree with you. I think
this is going back to where we were in the 80s.
this is part of is the NBA like a Roman Empire here a little bit? Where you're going and you're just getting so big. Now you want to go to Europe. Now you want to go to some of these other places, start NBA Africa. I get it all, but, and also you have too many teams in the regular NBA to support the level of basketball talent. There's just not there. You have 30 teams. You look at what you just alluded to. You look at the bottom of the NBA, and there's 7 franchises that are absolutely wretched.
On day one, they don't have a chance.
Right, and that's 25% of your league. Is that a good, healthy number? I don't know, but I'm with you on that. Do they improve? And the reason I don't think they improve is because I don't think they've gotten that punch in the nose that they need yet, because the money's still there. It's all of this stuff that we talked about on the very first day we had a show was as long as the money stays on the table, they're not going to change. They're not going to look back.
There's no competition for the league, though.
No.
There's competition in the league, but there's no competition for the league.
But they have college basketball bumped up right upside them now, and college basketball is very popular right now.
Yeah.
And the WNBA is becoming more popular right now too. I've watched some of their playoff games. Maybe we'll bring your guy Steve back for a little bit of that action. But I got another guy maybe that we could bring on who does some of the play-by-play for them as well. Here's another shot for you, Pete. Cooper Flagg, Rookie of the Year.
Oh yeah. As long as he's healthy, yes.
I've seen some clips of him. He looks great. And he's playing good defense. I think he's going to be on the right team also because they got some big men on that team like Daniel Gafford, and they have Derek Lively. So he'll be able to play out on the perimeter, and he's 6'10". Now you're adding another 6'10" guy out on the perimeter with Kyrie, hopefully, who's been hurt, but you want to get him back. But they've got Klay Thompson on that team. I think they're going to be okay, and I think he's got a good shot. Pete, do you have a team that's the next Pistons? We were doing funerals every week for the Pistons in here when they were in that moribund state. And in 1 year, without a whole lot of change of talent, they rose like a phoenix, came into the playoffs, and gave the Knicks everything they could handle in that playoff round. So I was mega, mega impressed with the Pistons. Who's the Pistons this year?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't been following the lower tier teams enough, but could you see the Dallas Mavericks coming out of nowhere? Or
I could.
Just don't have them.
I could. No, I could
I've
see
heard
that happening.
rumblings about it.
I really could see them getting, it's so much, and I hate to say this because it's, so much is going to rely on Kyrie.
Yeah.
So much.
And that's going to be tougher for him because he's getting older.
And don't forget, Pete, they have Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
They have Anthony Davis. That team is primed. I like what you said there, and I'm going to throw the Pelicans because I've looked at Zion, and boy, does he look like he's in the best shape of his life. And I think Derek Queen is going to help up there. I like what I see there. I'm going to go with the Pelicans. Here's the East Coast, West Coast that I kind of jumped into for a second. I think the West Coast is loaded with talent right now, much more significantly than the East Coast. In the East Coast, you go with Giannis. You know, he's a great player. You got Donovan Mitchell, Cade Cunningham, Paolo Banchero, Jalen Brunson, and Joel Embiid, if he's healthy. There's a nice 6. If you look over on the West Coast, though, man, they got it loaded. They got Joker and SGA both in the West. You got Luka and LeBron in the West. You got Anthony Edwards in the West. Wembanyama's in the West. Steph Curry's still in the West. You got Kevin Durant, James Harden. You got Zion, and you also have the kid Butler, who went to the Warriors. Jimmy Butler from the Heat. So right now, if I had to draw a line, I'd say the West is much more loaded than the East right now. What team has the most active NBA players in college that are now in the NBA? The team with the most active players right now, which means, within the last while. And it's going to be an interesting little piece here, all right? Kentucky leads the way with 30 current players in the NBA. That's an amazing, amazing testament to John Calipari and his staff. Duke has 25. That's 55 right there. You know what's funny, though? There are 0 titles between Duke and Kentucky in the last decade. With all of that talent, 55 NBA players running through their programs, they don't have a title. Arizona has 14. UCLA, Gonzaga, and Michigan all have 12. Baylor has 11. Kansas 10, Villanova 10, Arkansas 9, UNC has 9, USC 9, Connecticut has 8, Texas has 8, and Alabama has that. Nice list. Not bad. All right. Here's where we're going to get into it, though, okay? Because now it's time for college basketball to take off. And everybody's got a top 25. Everybody's got a top 10. Everybody's got the best players. Here's the best 10 players. I really looked at it, and I was going through, and I just think, like, I hate to be facetious and say it like that, but man, we're just better than some of these guys because they just miss. It's also like why you become a good basketball player, because you make shots more than other people made shots.
Yeah.
And it's the same way here. You got to make shots. You got to put the ball in the hoop. Right here, we're going to talk about our guy Evan Maya. He's a prognosticator, and he's a top 10 guy. So he's got top 10 team, and he's got top 10 players. And I looked at it, and this is what I wanted to do, because I wanted for a while now to do a deep dive on the top 10. Like, who's really, really got it, to get into that. People are a lot higher on Purdue than I am. I'll give them that example. And they're a lot lower on St. John's than I am. And we'll talk about that and the rationale for that. But here's Evan Maya, and this is what I wanted to get into it with a little bit here. Here's his top 10. It's a good top 10. Not knocking him here. But you look at some of this other stuff and you say, how did you slip by that? All right. You got Houston at 1. You got Purdue at 2. I'm no way at Purdue at 2. No way. Duke at 3. No way am I Duke at 3. No possible scenario. You got Florida at 4. I think that's very doable, very possible. I might even include Florida at the 2 spot, right in there. You got Michigan at 5. Axel Lendenberg is going to be a big addition, but I don't know that Michigan has enough. They also have a lot of moving pieces. This is how I kind of evaluated this myself, because I look at it through a coaching lens a little bit, and these guys look at it through a different lens. If I see a lot of moving pieces, a lot of portal pirates showed up at your program, and you got a lot of NIL pieces moving in and out, and you have to change your locker room signs over the lockers, every single year. You got to take down the placard and put up a new one. If you're doing a whole lot of that, I don't think it plays well for you. I think if you can really conduct program integrity right now under these difficult conditions, you're going to have a better chance. But Purdue is one of those program integrity guys, but I'm just not as high on them. They got Connecticut at 6. That's way too high. I'm sorry. That's way too high for them right now. Arizona at 7, I don't see it. BYU at 8, you better move BYU up. You better move them up. They got A.J. DeBonsa, the number one, ESPN number one player in the country. They got Richie Saunders, who averaged almost 20 points a game last year. They've got some talent, but here's a name I'm going to throw out for everybody at BYU. They have Robert Hunter, who came over from Baylor and is an amazing guard that's really, really going to put them, I think, into hyperspace. Watch BYU. They're in my top 4, folks. Right now, you got Illinois. Illinois is what we call them on this show now. They're a completely European operation. They're going 11, but again, a lot of moving pieces that I don't love there. And they're going Kentucky here, and they give Kentucky the shot at 10, but then they knock Kentucky's best player. They don't have him in the top 10 over here, which I was a little surprised at. Otega away is going to have a great, great year for them. I don't know that they have enough because they lost a lot. And you're now in this situation where, Mark Pope is more of a program integrity coach. Now you got this thing moving and grooving like a carousel at the Big E. And all of a sudden you got coaches that are kind of flustered and not able to handle some of this stuff. Here's where Evan missed, okay? I'm really, really kind of solid on St. John's as my number one team in the nation right now. They've brought in a lot of pieces, no question, but if anybody can handle those pieces, it's Rick Pitino. He's the godfather in the coaching business right now, a little bit of a prophet as well, but I'm going to tell you this right now, they are loaded, top to bottom. You put them out on the floor with Purdue, and it's going to be ugly if you ask me. All right? Louisville, second team that I think he missed on. They brought in a couple of transfers that shoot the lights out. Ryan Conwell coming in from Xavier was huge for them, and they return a good bit. And I think Kelsey's, showing everybody why he's a really, really winning coach. Wherever you go with Kelsey, you're going to win. Texas Tech. How do you not have Texas Tech in your top 10? I'm just like, this is one I'm shaking my head at. For you not to have St. John's and you not to have Texas Tech in your top 10, but then go ahead and tell me that Jacob Toppin's one of the best players in the country, I'm with you. But Texas Tech is loaded, folks. They belong in the top 10. Arkansas. Don't sleep on Calipari's team this year. They lost Boogie. I know Boogie's in Florida, and they're going to have to stop Boogie, when they see Boogie. But they got talent on this team, and they have some guys that are back. They have some guys that are returning. I don't sleep on Arkansas this year. I hadn't really gone with them in the past, but Calipari has kind of slipped a little bit out of the one-and-done business, and now some of his guys are staying. They've got some talent, and when he recruits, man, let me tell you, that guy can flat out recruit. He's going to bring them in. They're going to get them, and they're going to get great players. So he brought in Boogie Flant. They turn around. They don't sleep. At Arkansas, when Boogie left, they didn't lose any sleep over that because they know they have Calipari, and he'll reload that in a second. They might even find a better player. You never know. But I'm going to give Arkansas a little bump there. Alabama, they got Phelan and Holloway. Could be one of the best backcourts in the country, folks. And the guy Oates can coach. And right now he's got a little bit of it now where he's very guard-driven. They love to shoot the 3-ball there. They also have Jaleel Bethea, who signed with them, who was from Miami. I thought Bethea would be a first-round pick by now. That's a promise he had as a high school player. Kind of struggled at Miami in the back end of that program, where there was kind of a little bit of dissonance there at the end, and he didn't really, get off and have a good freshman year. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does at Alabama from Miami, and that's a good 1-2-3 punch right there. And do not sleep on my guys, Gonzaga Mark Few. He's a great coach, and they got a good program. They got a lot of talent right now. We're going to talk about that in depth. Here's the top 10 players that he put on, and I'm going to throw you a bunch that he missed on. Braden Smith, everybody is high on Braden Smith. comes back, leading Purdue, one of the best point guards in the country. No question there, but there's no question. He's not even close to the best player in the country right now. There's no question about that in my mind. Yexel Lendenberg, the UAB transfer that's coming into Michigan, big things. I probably had him in my top 15 in the draft. He decided to go to Michigan, pull his name out, kind of like with Duke when they had Cedric Coward, and he was set to go to Duke if he didn't go in the draft. Well, Lendenberg went to Michigan, and the other guy went in the draft. So that's the wins and losers of the NCAA portal, NIL world. JT Toppin, probably the best player in the country right now. I'm going to go with Texas Tech. Had they kept Darian Williams, man, that would have been some team. Tahad Pettiford is back, had a good combine. He's lefty. He can launch it. He can get a little bit of boogie to his game as well. He can change and shift and get into the rim. Really, really solid player. Back for a sophomore year at Auburn. We'll see how that all gels together. But Auburn's lucky to have him back. The previously mentioned LeBron Philon, he again looked at the NBA, came back out, didn't get great news from the NBA people as far as where his positioning was. He decided to come back to Alabama. They're loaded, man. Alabama's got a nice one. Bruce Thornton, this is the guy that's going to carry Ohio State if they can get going. If anybody's going to get it going, it's going to be Bruce Thornton. He's tough, strong, physical, and he's a stud. I just don't know that Ohio State has enough to go around him right now, but he's a super player, certainly one of the best in the country. Down here they have A.J. Dabansa and Darren Peterson, the ESPN 1-2 punch from last year. Two unbelievable great players coming into the NCAA, most likely going to be one and done, so Kansas and BYU better reload, but they're going to come in and probably be you would project the 1 and 2 pick in the NBA draft as well. So that's A.J. Dabansa out of Brockton, Massachusetts. Darren Peterson, the Kansas recruit. He's going to have a lot to do with that Kansas team to get them back up where they need to be. Cam Boozer, the Duke twin. He's got his brother there as well, and their dad played there as well. What a legacy for Duke. He's a great player. He's going to have to do a lot this year. I don't know that Dukie's got enough, though. Tommy Haw, he's a big guy, plays solid. You know, he's one of the reasons that Florida won this year. He's back. Florida's got Condon back. They've got some really, really good pieces. Brand new backcourt with Boogie and Xavier Lee, but we'll see how that goes. Here's some guys I think they missed on. Here's where Evan missed. He swung and he missed. Boogie, you got to put Boogie in there. Boogie's at Florida now, going to be coached a little differently, going to be paired up with one of the better point guards that was also available in the portal, but he's also walking onto a team where they have, their 3, 4, and 5 guys are already set, loaded, and ready to go. Alex Condon took his name out of the draft and is back. Chinule is back. They got some people up front. So if this backcourt can mix with that front court, look at Florida. Here's a question for everybody. Can they repeat? Can they put it together and go boom, boom? I don't know about that. I love Terrace Reed. I love UConn's Terrace Reed. I think he could be a dominant big man. If they dump it and dump it and dump it to him, they're going to get a lot of result out of that. Previously mentioned again, Ortega, away. Kentucky, take it away. Because when he came back, they really, really got a good lift. All right, had they had to face the SEC schedule without this young man, that could have been rough for them. Tameen Lipsey, again, he's hurt. Again, so I'm waiting to see, but he was injured, got injured again, and he's a great guard for Iowa State, though they're going to need him. They're going to need him to go at Momcilovic out there. Graham Ike, Gonzaga, 19 points a game last year. He got hurt a little bit. It slowed Gonzaga down. He's back, revved up and ready to go. John Blackwell from Wisconsin. Wisconsin always has these guys like John Tanji. Nobody knew about Tanji till he dropped 41. And now, Blackwell's going to do the same thing. He's a stud, plays for Wisconsin, and they're going to rely on him very heavily. P.J. Haggerty, I don't know why, but he wound up down at Kansas State. It's just one of those weird looks for me. It's like Darian Williams going to NC State. Man, you could have stayed at Memphis and had a great run there, and Darian Williams could be at Texas Tech right now, and they might have a shot to win it all. I don't know why that doesn't matter anymore. All right, so you got Trey Kaufman-Renn. He's the other piece to that Purdue 1-2 punch that's unbelievable. He averaged over 20 a game last year. He's one of the best players in the country. They didn't have him down, and I love Emmanuel Sharp from Houston. I like Houston's team, and I can tell you why very quickly. Let's jump into it. This is now his top 10. I want to give you who they got and why I think they're good. Houston at number 1, I don't really have a problem with that. I might put somebody else there right now, but I don't have a problem with Houston. Here's why. Milos Uzan, 11 points. Emmanuel Sharp, 12 points. They got Isaiah Harwell, who's ESPN number 14 player. They got Chris Senack, who's ESPN number 6, and they bring back maybe the best defensive player in the country, Joseph Tugler, the big man inside. ESPN has them at 3. Purdue, Braden Smith, C.J. Cox, Fletcher Lawyer. That's a really good 1-2-3 punch, but it's not the best I've seen. Trey Kaufman-Renn and Oscar Clough, that might be the punch up front that makes this team that number 1 entity because they are loaded. They've got a lot, and Clough comes out of South Dakota State, and he averaged almost 18 a game there. They have Duke here at 3. Way too high, and I'm going to tell you why. Duke, Caleb Foster, Isaiah Evans, both averaged 6 and 5 last year. Nicholas Kamenia is the ESPN top 15 player. They're hoping that he can take Con Knupple's place. Cam Boozer is the ESPN number 3, so they've got 2 freshmen that they're going to count on, and Patrick Ngongo, 3.9 points a game. That's not the regular Duke team. If you look at the team they had this year with Cooper Flagg, Kaman Malak, and Con Knuppel as a 1-2-3 with these guys included, I say, yeah, that's a great team. But now you're telling me Cam Boozer is going to take the place of all 3 of those guys, maybe with Kamenia, and it's going to be the same thing. I don't see it. Give a look to Caden Boozer, though. He might be able to help add some depth here. But I don't see them at number 3. ESPN has them at 12. Evan goes with Florida at number 4. Can't argue with that too much. I think Florida's got to prove, you got to let them prove you wrong. So they got Boogie, Xavion Lee, and Tom Hall. That's a 1-2-3 punch that's unbelievable. But they got Alex Condon and Ruben Chinule up front. Man, that's some good stuff. The transfers are from Arkansas and Pete. Xavion Lee comes out of Princeton. Not often you see people leaving Princeton. Michigan, they have him at 5. ESPN has him at 8. Elliot Cadeau, UNC transfer, not my guy. I'm not in love with him, but I'm hoping that the coaching staff, Dusty May, can do something there. Roddy Gale averaged 9.8 last year. You've got Namal Burnett, 9.4. Here's the big guy, Yexel Lendenberg, who went for 17.7 at UAB, and they bring in Morez Johnson Jr., who averaged 7 points at Illinois. Pretty good. Here's why people are excited about UConn, Pete. He's got them picked 6th. ESPN has them picked 4. Both of them have them picked over St. John's, which I was absolutely shocked by. Here's why maybe, though. Silas DeMary comes in from Georgia. 13.5 he averaged at Georgia. He's a solid guard. They're going to bring him in with Solo Ball, who was a returner, averaged 14.4 for them last year. Braylon Mullins is their freshman, ESPN top 17 player. Alex Caravan is back. You'd think Alex Caravan would be out of eligibility by now, Pete. He's like the old man in the sea, but he's back. And here's the guy I'm excited about because he will get more time now because their other big guy now is off. Solomon is off. Taris Reed Jr., 9.6 last year. Watch for him to be a dominant player in the Big East this year. I'm telling you right now, folks, Taris Reed, buy it. He's a top 15 NBA as well, I think. Arizona, Jaden Bradley, he's returning 12.1. They bring in Braden Burries, and they also bring in Koa Pete. That's the number 10 and the number 12, ESPN. And they also got Anthony Del Orso and Toby Awaka. I think it's going to be rough out there in Arizona. I don't think it's going to be that great. I think you're counting on these freshmen to be a little bit more than they are. If you're adding a freshman, like say on the Dallas Mavericks, you're bringing in Cooper Flagg to an existing really good team, I think he has a great chance. If you're loading up some of these young men and you're saying he's going to be the difference, like Darren Peterson at Kansas, I want to see. Now you got BYU. Let's get to BYU. They got them 8th. I would have them no further off than 3rd, 4th total. ESPN has them at 6. They got Robert Wright. He's a stud. 11.5 at Baylor last year in his freshman year. He's an athlete. He's a stud. Kennard Davis, 16.3 at Southern Illinois. He could really help. Richie Saunders, I'm really excited about Richie Saunders. 16.5 last year. Great player, solid, and he's going to be a real good role model, I think, for DeBonsa. Then you add the number 1 player in the country, A.J. DeBonsa, ESPN number 1, and then go Kiba Kaida, big man inside who'll be able to block some shots. Keep an eye on BU, folks. Keep an eye on BYU, folks. They're going to be solid. All right, they got Illinois. ESPN has them at 16. They have Illinois at 9. I don't even know if I'd have them in my top 20 because I don't even know who these guys are. Mahalo Petrovic, Kylan Boswell, both, the team that Petrovic played for is called Mega Superbet. Never even heard of them. Kylan Boswell averaged 12.3. They got Stojakovic, though, from California. Peja Stojakovic's son, Andre, he's a stud, going to really help them and shoot. They've got the Ivisic brothers up front, one from Arkansas, and Tomislav Ivisic, who had 13 points a game. So it's very Euro, very continental, but we'll see what happens. There's a lot of talent on that team, though. That's for sure. I think Kylan Boswell can be a little bit of a glue guy there. Kentucky, ESPN has them at 9. These guys have them at 10. It's Jalen Lowe, who transferred from Pitt. That's a huge pickup. He averaged 16.8 in the ACC last year. Got Denzel Aberdeen, Otega Owe, 16.2 for Kentucky last year. You got Mohamed Diabute, who was at Alabama. He's a big man. And you got Jaden Quaintance, which was maybe one of the best portal guys out there. He came from Arizona State, Mr. Jaden Quaintance. Now, here's why I think that Mr. Maya missed the boat, all right? Listen to this St. John's team, all right? Now, there's a lot of moving pieces also, but they bring back Zuby Ejiofor, who might be the best center in the country. Had a great year last year for them, averaged 14.7. Now they bring in Ian Jackson, who was a transfer from North Carolina. Averaged almost 12 points a game out there for North Carolina, and he's originally from Cardinal Hayes in the Bronx, so it's a coming home show for him. He's going to load some fannies up in the seats, and he is a highlight film, folks, a highlight film. Jason Sannon, 11.9. The New York people are going to love this young man's game. Going to love Jason Sannon. He had 11.9 for Arizona State. Ian Jackson, 6'6". Sannon is 6'7". Oziah Sellers, big, strong. He averaged 13.7 at Stanford. You got Bryce Hopkins, who sat out last year when he was at Providence because he was injured, but had 15.5 for Providence the year before, and then throw Zuby in there. I think they win the Big East hands down. I don't even think it's close. I know people have UConn over them, but I don't see it. Louisville. Somebody's sleeping, boy, because they got ESPN has them at 7. These guys don't even have them. Mikkel Brown, ESPN, number 8 player. He's very good. You got Isaac McNeely, who came from Virginia. Ryan Conwell, who came from Xavier. And you've got Javon Headley and Kayshawn Pryor. McNeely and Conwell are deadly shooters. They will stretch the floor, and they will really benefit that team. Here's Texas Tech. No idea how you left them out. Again, Darian Williams returns here. I think they're the number 1 team in the country. But you got Christian Anderson, comes back after 10.6. Donovan Atwell, 13.3 at Greensboro. You got LaJuan Watts, 13.7 at Washington State. Those are good programs, folks. You got J.T. Toppin, who I think is the number 1 player in the country right now, after averaging 18.2 last year. And you got Luke Bamgoy, a big man who came in from VCU. All right, Pete, we got a few minutes left. I've got a bunch of questions that some people laid out here for some NBA teams but I'm going to do my best to save that for next week because right now I don't know that we will make it all the way through. Here's a couple of pieces of news, and this is further difficulty for our hometown Boston Celtics here. All right, Al Horford went ahead, was pretty much well thought of, that was going to happen. Horford went ahead and signed a long-term deal with the Warriors. All right, so another guy from the Celtics, probably was making a good amount of money too, but another guy that, they just couldn't hold. The Warriors picked him up, and so it's really, really in furtherance of a total decimation of their front line. You took out Porzingis. You took out Jason Tatum, or the injury took out Jason Tatum. And now losing Horford, it's going to be hard to see how they make the playoffs this year, to be honest with you. Everybody asks me, how's my hometown Celtics going to do? And I wish I had great news for them, but I think their roster is imploding right now. I don't think Joe Mazzulla is the right guy to handle an imploding roster, and I think it might be difficult for him to make it through all of this. Okay, LeBron, as Pete talked about, LeBron's out for camp. All right, so he got load management before even the season starts. It's proactive load management. He's going to sit out camp. He's going to come in, might be nursing a little bit of this, a little bit of that. The Warriors have ended the stalemate. Now, this is good news for Warrior fans, all right? You just added Horford, who I think is a glue guy, a clutch guy, and he really, really probably is a great locker room guy. He's a guy you want in there saying positive stuff. He might also be able to talk some sense into Draymond Green on occasion, but you never know about that. But they also went ahead and gave a 2-year deal to Jonathan Kuminga, and that's big for them. $48 million over 2 years, $24 million for Kuminga. That's not terrible. He's a good player. He's been a little mercurial, and I really want to see, if there's – it's almost like when these coaches or these organizations get into this mindset, okay, we got Draymond, we've got Steph, those guys are, and I get that they're untouchable, but then there's a whole lot of guys that went in and out of there. Klay Thompson's gone now, Wiggins is gone now. They got a lot of guys that have been kind of revolving in and out of there, kind of like the Lakers, and I think they got to kind of hold, and Kuminga was a good hold for them because I think he has the potential to be an all-star. He hasn't shown it yet. But he does have that potential. He's got tremendous NBA skill set. All right, here's a rough one. Here's a rough one for Hoops fans. Rest in peace, Mr. Lawrence Moten. Great player for Syracuse. Believe he's the all-time leading scorer at Syracuse in basketball. Mr. Moten was also a tremendous football player. Passed away recently, 53 years of age. It's very sad. I got to coach against Mr. Moten when I was at Colgate, and trying to prepare a scouting report for Lawrence Moten was totally it was a frivolous endeavor because you just couldn't scout him. He was just so good at everything, and he was going to show up everywhere. And it's sad. 53 is such a baby in age, and I did know him, and he was a great young man, and everybody that knew him thought nothing but great things about him. So rest in peace, Mr. Lawrence Moten. Pete, we talked about it last week on the show. Virginia Tech has agreed. They said we're going to do it. $229 million additional dollars into the athletics program in order to level the infield with their other, it's what we talked about here, intra-league disparities in NIL money, intra-league disparities and disadvantages about where the spending is. I'll give you an example. The other day, the A-10 put out their preseason, and they had a group of a really good group at the top, But I would almost venture to say that it's a preseason poll, so it's not, it's what everybody thinks might happen. It's also like getting a phone number in a Marriott. You're a long way from the wedding table. So there's just that thing about it. I don't, the 229 that's in there, the disparities, I would say, in that A-10 poll are almost lined up based on who has what dollar to spend. It's almost totally driven and delineated by here's where we got the big money, here's guys with a little bit of money, here's the guys that are struggling to gain some NIL traction. Wilt the Stilt, Pete, Nobody talks about him as one of the great players. And as I alluded to, Michael Jordan got a different set of rules in order to help Michael Jordan. Wilt Chamberlain got a different set of rules because they wanted to slow Wilt Chamberlain down. Now, they used to have a play that Kansas used to run. They outlawed this play, but it was so cool because they outlawed dunking. They didn't want dunking, so that was a tremendous disadvantage for him. But they used to run this play where they would throw the ball right over the top of the backboard on an out-of-bounds play from under their own basket, and then he would just jump up and lay it in. It was like this unstoppable out-of-bounds play. You couldn't. Now they had to outlaw that you couldn't then throw the ball over the top of the backboard in on an out-of-bounds play. But here it is, Pete. Quintuple double. Never done before. Will never be done again in my mind. 52 points, 32 rebounds, 14 assists, 24 block shots, 11 steals. 24 block shots. That's almost half of the team's shots. He blocked them. I mean, that's dominant. Dominant. Okay. You got a little bit of here's some double vision for you, Pete, from Foreigner. How much time do I got left?
About 2 minutes.
2 minutes, yeah. All right. Here's the double vision I'm talking about. 20 games, 20 points, 20 rebounds. Wilt Chamberlain, he did it 670 times.
Good Lord.
In a total 1,205 games. Folks, you got to start talking about him as the GOAT. You got to at least include him in the conversation. Bill Russell, 237 times, 20 and 20. Bob Pettit, there's an old name, because this is one of the reasons I wanted to do this list. These are all old names. A lot of these guys are in the old days where they really did yeoman's work. Bob Pettit, 186 times in a 2020. Nate Thurmond, loved Nate Thurmond, 2020, 153 times. Jerry Lucas of the Knicks and Ohio State played with Havlicek, played with Bobby Knight too, 144 times, and he could remember the entire phone book like up to G. He was crazy. Kareem, 141. Elgin Baylor, 131. Walt Bellamy, 129. This is all old school. Elvin Hayes, 127. Moses Malone, 119. Unbelievable. Pete, I've got 30 questions for you for next week. We'll save them. We'll give you a little something to look forward to. But, folks, get ready. The lamp is about to be lit. Teams are at practice. Teams are ready to roll. Exhibitions will start happening very soon. UMass has an exhibition game on the 25th of October, just to give you a little bit of an idea how quickly it's coming down the pike. Pete, we'll see you next week. All of our people, thank you for watching. You're in the zone, baby.